Hey, welcome. Welcome to today's session of our HLS Modern Workplace Transformation Series. Today we're going to be talking about Microsoft Enterprise Data Governance and Management. And we have a very special guest today. We have Gagan, pronounced it correctly, Gulati, and he's going to be talking to us today. He actually had his power go out in his house, so we're quick doing some last minute scrambling. So if you bear with me, what we can do though, in the meantime, just a couple of Q&A pieces or housekeeping. In the upper right-hand corner of your browser or your Microsoft's Teams, you will see that what we have there is a little icon with a question mark. And if you click on that, you'll be able to post Q&A and other things up there. And I'll be moderating that and pushing that over. So real quickly, I'm going to take a look and see if we were able to get, there we go, and file, save a copy. Download as, here we go. I'm going to download a copy of his presentation that we can advance through. So we had to, again, jump through some hoops for today, but that's the beauty of running in the cloud. We've got anywhere, anytime access to our content. So I've got it on my desktop. I'm going to go ahead then here and we will open that up. And I'm going to be advancing through as he directs me. And there we go. Even though we have issues with with the ability to advance pieces, here we go. Let's say enable, and we'll go ahead and push that there. And what I'm going to do then is share my desktop for this. And let's take one quick look. That should be there. There we go. We're going to push that over live. And go ahead and start in presentation mode. There we go. So we should be showing that. So Gagan, would you care to introduce yourself? And I can go ahead and advance your slides as we go. I have it opened up to the first introduction, the tour slide.
Okay, definitely. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we hear you loud and clear.
Okay, very, very good. Thank you. My name is Gagan Gulati. I lead the Azure Information Protection product team. And at the same time, I lead the initiative for what we call as the Microsoft Information Protection Narrative, which is all about protecting your sensitive data wherever it is throughout its life cycle. And we run this team across Microsoft, various different teams across the company coming together to bring the right value for you to help you be more secure and compliant. Apologies for this little delay. As Mike mentioned, we had a little power outage here in Sammamish in Washington State, but that's okay. We are ready to go through the slides as well. So Mike, just keep forwarding. Please forward to the next slide.
You got it.
Okay, keep going. Thank you so much.
And we're in the agenda.
Yeah, so today we're going to walk you through some very basic stuff around what is information protection. What have we done lately to improve it across the company, across the administration interfaces and end user experiences, how we are taking the idea of classification, labeling, and protection, not only in the cloud, but also helping you protect your data on premises and on endpoints, and then walk you through some of our roadmap items and what we are looking ahead for the first half of this year. Very excited about showing you where we are heading. Next slide, Mike. All right, so I hope you guys have seen this slide before. Across Microsoft security, we have four big pillars when it comes to information worker security. We have the identity and access management piece. We have threat protection, which is all about protecting against bad actors coming in, hackers, others. And we have the pillar of security management, which provides you the management capabilities on top of all the other three you've seen. Today, we're going to focus on information protection, which is one of the four and one of the most important pillars that we have got for you guys. Next slide, man.
Okay.
There is no, I don't even have to explain this slide. You guys understand this really, really well, that sensitive data is at risk today more than it has ever been. You know that this could be because of your employees using non-approved SaaS apps at work and copy pasting data, or putting in data that you didn't really approve them of using, of sending to these non-approved SaaS apps, to the idea that you actually accidentally send data out to the wrong people, and there is no way to now get it back. We have seen that sensitive data is at risk now more than ever, and you are more aware of the sensitive data at risk because guess what? There's just more tools available to help you be more aware of what's going on in your organization. So these are just some of the stats that we have got from the industry, not our stats. Next slide, Mike.
Oh, just advanced it, and
yeah,
it's building. There we go.
Okay. And the reason why this is more at risk is because the organizations are not what they used to be, right? The old world was a very nice, different world where you had a perimeter, and I still remember the old days where we would take our badge to work, and we will get into our building, onto our PC, and that's the only way you could access the emails and the data. Our CD drive were glued. The USB drive was glued away, the DVD drive was taken away, and that's how you worked on secret projects. That was the word of yesterday, and our CISOs, or our security officers and compliance officers, were a little bit more sure that the data is not leaking. But that really wasn't the case. I mean, it's just that you didn't know enough. But today's world is just a lot more different. I mean, in today's world, we live in, SaaS apps are just galore. I mean, Office 365 takes a lion's share of a lot of the user productivity today. You may have ServiceNow, you may have Box, Workday, Salesforce, so many other apps in your organization. And the fact of the matter is that data is not now left in your perimeter anymore. Data travels a lot more than it ever has in the past. And that's a new reality. And we must react to this new reality. The productivity is at an all-time high. No doubt about it. But at the same time, security and compliance must also follow and stay or go further in terms of all-time high. And that's where some of the information protection conversations come in. Next slide, Mike. And the next question, typically, you get asked is, do you have a strategy for protecting and managing your sensitive information? Like, for example, do you know where your sensitive data is? Is it on file servers or in the cloud, apps, or is it on endpoint? Like, where is your sensitive data? How much do you know about it? So that's a question that pretty much gets asked. It's called the discovery. And then second is, well, the data is moving. So how much control do you have over this data? If I, Gagan, at your company, took a very sensitive document and send it to somebody outside the company, legitimately or not, how much control do you have over my sending the data to the other, sending this important file to the outsider or not? And can you control it? Can you track it? And the last question is, there are a lot of organizations out there, including Microsoft, that over the period have had multiple different products that have helped them with being more compliant and being more secure for discovery of classification of data, labeling of data, protection of data, tracking it, monitoring it. And the more the number of solutions you have in an organization, the harder it becomes. simply because you have to manage all of them. So that's the hard part, and we have to make sure that you have a consistent set, ideally one or a consistent small set of solutions that can help you protect, and that should be your strategy, not a gamut of 80 different products that can come together to give you, managing your and protecting your sensitive information. Mike?
Got it.
So yes, you can click 6 buttons and you'll get through all of them. So as I said, what our customers have told us is, number one, that we discussed, this scattered data is scattered across sources and the data continues to grow. So this is a very typical question we get, which is, hey, so what do I do now? I used to have Windows endpoints and I used to have file servers. And then you brought in SharePoint on-prem. Now we have SharePoint Online, Exchange Online. I have my data on Salesforce. I have my data 100 other places. I've got mobile phones. I don't even know where it is. And my data is scattered more places than ever, as an example. And the second is, like, now that I have data across all of these places, I have bought these solutions that protect data on one place and then the other place. Like, you may have a solution that helps you protect data in the old style on-prem version, but then you have a different solution that helps you protect data before it leaves the company. And if you have many different solutions, like a DLP solution, encryption solution, classification solution, and others, you can't have unified policies. It makes it super hard. And then the other question we keep hearing is, hey, we got this new regulation. Let's assume a PII data, we have to manage PII now, or I've got GDPR regulation to honor, or I have the HIPAA regulation to honor. Help me protect this data. Tell me, how would I comply to that particular regulation? And fourth, I want complete coverage wherever my data is, and not like on one place but not on the other one. I want to enforce compliance. And most importantly, when I want to find out relevant data, I should know exactly where it is, right? So you want a consistent view and a comprehensive view of all your content, irrespective of where it is. That's one of the most important pieces we hear from compliance officers. Which, when it comes to compliance, you're looking for a specific, needle in the haystack. You should be able to find out where that is. Next slide, Mike.
Got it.
Okay, so building on that base, those are exactly the questions we have set out to answer. We started this team multiple years ago, and we called it the Azure Information Protection Team. But over the last couple of years, we realized that we need support from all of the Microsoft products across the board to help us do our job better, and at the same time with a lot of our partners who need to come together with us to solve this problem of helping you protect your sensitive data, whether it's inside or outside the organization. And that's really our motto. Next slide, Mike. Thank you. And this is, if there was nothing else you took from today's presentation, this is the one slide that I would really focus on, which is 4 pillars of helping you do better information protection across the workloads that we cover today. So the first pillar we have is discovery of sensitive data. And this is about, casting a net to catch all the butterflies out there in the garden, right? The bigger the net, the better you are. So the more you can discover data, whether it's at rest, in traveling, or in motion, the better you are essentially in classifying it and protecting it and monitoring it. And we have, and this is our first pillar, and we do this across devices, across apps, across cloud services, and on premises. We basically want to leave no stone unturned when it comes to discovery or sensitive data. So that's part one. Once you have discovered that there is data, for example, if I'm starting to write a document on my Windows device and I start typing in sensitive information like credit card numbers or some PII data in my document, you want to catch it right away, right? That's what we basically call discovery. Not when the file is ready to be sent out through a network perimeter or put on a USB. Not then. You want to catch it right when it's created, and that's where the power of one Microsoft comes in, because we can do this natively, ideally in the right apps, the productivity apps of your choice. So whether it's Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, Excel, or Outlook, or even when it's PDF, because we work with Adobe so closely, doesn't matter what file you create, we can actually discover the contents of the file right when it's created. So that's about devices and apps. And the same thing when it's in Office 365, we can do the best job, of course. When it's on premises, we can still do the best job because we have got control over what we have the best idea about how SharePoint on premises work and Windows file servers work and others. Once you've discovered, you can go classify the file, protect the file if it's insensitive, and then monitor what's happening to these files across all of these workloads as well. So if nothing else you took from today's conversation, this is the one slide that walks you through the 4 pillars of discover, classify, protect, and monitor across all the right workloads of devices, apps, cloud services, and on-premises. Mike, next slide, please.
Yep.
Thank you. So we hear from our customers the following 4 use cases that they may be looking for to implement for various different reasons. One of the reasons could be, hey, as part of my compliance journey, I want to just first discover and understand what sensitive data I have across my organization. I will classify them later. I will protect them later. I'll monitor them later. For now, I just want to go ahead and discover and understand. Just give me a dashboard where I can see everything. So that's great. That's a great use case that we hear. Second one is, I already have classification, labeling, and protection techniques and technologies that I've implemented on-prem, but guess what? My organization is moving to the cloud. You have embraced M365, you've embraced Office 365, and you want to accelerate your journey by seeing the same thing happening on all of your data in the cloud as well. And you want to do this by making sure that you have classified, labeled, and protected all of your data on premises before it heads to the cloud, so that you don't have to do this double work. And we offer a bunch of functionality there. Third one, very important, is, hey, I'm a very hybrid organization. I have got Microsoft products, I've got Amazon products, I've got Box, I've got Salesforce, ServiceNow. Do you have a strategy or that works across the apps? And the answer is yes, we can definitely help with that. And that's a very common use case we hear. I think all organizations, including Microsoft, is in that bucket. Last but not the least, you have to meet compliance regulations today. You may be HIPAA compliant in the HIPAA compliance world. You may be in the GDPR compliance world. So the question typically comes is, tell me, what do I need to do to meet those compliance? So there's four very common use cases that we help solve with the previous screen that you saw around our pillars and the workloads. Next slide, Mike.
Got it.
And one other thing I want to mention is that we look at Microsoft information protection from 2 ways. We look at it from the data protection side, from which is more of a security side of the house, where you say, hey, I want to secure my data. I want to make sure that no bad actor can ever get access to my data. So that's one. And second, from the data governance house as well, which is all about retaining data, deleting old data, records management, and archiving. And our common solution of discover, classify, and label helps you perform both actions. Both of these actions are important from definitely from security, but very important from a compliance point of view, where you want to apply sensitivity labels to data, which help you with encrypting, watermarking, restricting access, and with retention labels, which help you with retaining data, deleting data, archiving data. And so we have a Microsoft Information Protection product helps you stay secure and compliant by providing both kinds of labels once you have discovered that there is sensitive data that you want to manage. Next slide, please.
Here, 1 second. Can you hold 1 second?
Yes, definitely.
I'm going to escape. I had some people mentioning they were having an issue joining the session, so I'm going to grab this link very quickly, re-grab it for them, and reshare it out. Let's copy the hyperlink and link. Come on, computer. I apologize. There we go. And again. All righty. That should solve that. Let me just come back here and we'll reshare. Oh, I'm still sharing that. I just got to go full screen. All righty. And I just built out your slides. There you go.
All right, thank you, Mike. So we didn't start this way. Essentially, in the past, we had three different products in Office 365 information protection, in Windows information protection, and in Azure information protection. We had three different products across the company that were helping you classify and protect your data on different devices and cloud services, and we had different management portals. But then, as you heard earlier, given the principles that we had set for ourselves, that we will provide you with a unified policy management across your company, we will provide you with one single seamless solution that works across, and nobody else in the industry can do this as good as we can do it today. We now have merged all of these together. Mike, next slide, please.
Yep.
And we have reached a place where we have a single product, essentially, or single product line called Microsoft Information Protection. That's the new name we have given us. You may hear AIP and WIP and OIP many times over, but they're all part of the family called the Microsoft Information Protection Initiative. And as part of that, we now have a consistent discovery, classification, labeling, and protection story across the board. It doesn't matter where your data is, and we have a single place where we will all be managed in the Microsoft 365 Security and Compliance Center, rather than giving you 4 or 5 different places where you can go manage your policies. So it's a big deal. Not many products out in the world can do this right when it comes to providing you with a consistent story across the board, whether it's end user experience or administration experiences. Next slide, Mike. Thank you.
Oops, sorry.
Oh, that's all right. You're actually perfect.
Previous.
So the first, you remember the 4 pillars we have around discover, classify, protect, and monitor. What we're going to do is we're going to pick 3 of them first together around discovery, classification, and protection, and then we will focus on the monitoring piece and reporting piece at the end as well. So let's focus on the first 3. Mike, next slide, please. All right. So here, as I was mentioning earlier, we want to give you the biggest and the best coverage wherever your data is. If you click one more time, Mike. Here, we have 3 or 4 different products, many different products actually, that help you discover and classify data consistently across the board. We have the AIP scanner. It's a product that is literally a scanner or a crawler that works against SharePoint on-prem and file servers. So you can run this scanner and it crawl through each file on your file servers or on your SharePoint on-prem, and will go and classify the file. And we'll come back and tell you whether it's sensitive or not based on the rules that you have set. Similarly, we have Office apps. I talked about the scenarios where you're writing an email, and as you type in sensitive information, we can classify it, and we can help you protect the email We can help you warn the user. We can give tooltips. We have various different ways of informing the user that this file is sensitive. Windows information protection runs on Windows 10. It's a great functionality that helps you provide a basic level of DLP, if you want to call it, on Windows devices. Of course, Office 365, you can imagine all our discovery, classification, and protection technologies will be built in. We will do it the best way because we are native and can't be touched. And we have the world's biggest cloud app security, or CASB product, in MCAS, as we call it, that actually helps you take the same discovery, classification, labeling, and protection story and takes it to all kinds of SaaS apps like Salesforce, Workday, ServiceNow, Box, Google, others. So if you are a hybrid organization, where you have devices, various kinds of apps, data on premises, and cloud and SaaS services, we have a product for you. We have you covered in terms of the discovery, throwing the widest net out there so you can stay compliant and secure. Next slide, Mike. And as I mentioned, that we now have a consistent content discovery and classification story across the board. We have a single classification service, actually, that powers all of these. One more click, right?
Yep.
One more, please.
Yep.
Just keep going. Sorry about this.
How's that?
Yeah. So we have a consistent story across the board with our uniform content discovery and classification. Now that across the company we have one single classification service, we have the ability to improve it very, very quickly. For example, over the last 3 to 6 months, we have natively integrated this into across many new Office 365 services. We have 90 plus built-in sensitive types. What this means is that you can literally go to our admin console and say, click a button and say, I want HIPAA compliance. So if you find sensitive documents that have match the criteria that HIPAA has set up, then automatically classify the file as, you can put a label like confidential for HIPAA. Or if you have PCI compliance, you can literally click a button and say, I want PCI compliance. So if you find data across any of these services that has that meets the criteria for PCI, then put the new label called confidential for PCI. Right, so we made it really simple. Or you can go and create your own custom type. You can say, hey, I want my company, my compliance officer or my security officer wants to create a new custom information type that I'm going to put in, which will contain, the patient ID, the patient record ID, the hospital ID, or you can put all of these things together, and you can create a new information type that works for you, that works for your industry, and you don't have to depend on us. But if we see usage, we're going to just create a built-in sensitive type for it over a period of time. For example, over the last 3 months or 6 months, we created a new GDPR template. So if you are an organization that focuses on GDPR, then just literally click a button, and then we would have you covered. We have fine-tuned our sensitive type offering. A lot of our customers have been telling us that we need more support. We have recently, when we say it's coming soon, we have a private preview running with a few customers where we have exact data match support. This is, if you are into classification, you will know that this is a very, very, very advanced, but at the same time, very important topic. Imagine you're in an Excel sheet with thousands of records. You want to know exactly what if you want to find out exactly one particular record of one particular person and classify the data based on that. For example, you can say my driving license ID, my patient record ID, and my address, and all of these 3 things have to come together to give me the exact data match. You can do that now. We have a private preview, public preview coming soon. And of course, image classification is something that we are adding for TIFF files, for PDFs that are pictures, for all kinds of image files. We will have very soon in public preview the ability to classify, to extract the content out of the image, and then run classification on top of those images as well. Now that we have one single classification service across all Microsoft across all information protection resources, we have the ability to continue to improve it very, very quickly, and we'll do that. All right, slide number 18, slide please. So once you have come to the realization you've discovered a sensitive file, and then you say, I want to classify this file as sensitive or confidential. What do? Well, the thing that you do is you apply a sensitive label to this file. And this is a concept that we pioneered over the last couple of years. We basically took it into the industry, and the entire industry now follows this pattern of applying persistent sensitivity labels to a file. We have created a default taxonomy. Even at Microsoft, we like MSIT, we have a taxonomy that we use today, and it contains 4 sensitivity labels, from highly confidential to general, which is a normal conversation. Hey, Mike, how are you? And I send him an email, so that's a general conversation, to public, right? Which is data that should be made public. So we have 4, one axis of four labels in terms of sensitivity. And similarly, we have scoped labels, which basically say confidential for who. You can say confidential for entire Microsoft, which includes FTEs and full-time employees and vendors. Or you can come and say, no, I want a confidential label for my Microsoft FTE only. So you can create those labels essentially through our administration console, and then you can make sure that your entire company follows that. And there are various examples we're going to show you over a period of time. But the point I wanted to make here was that sensitivity labels, creation of sensitivity labels and customization is the key, is one of the key elements of your overall information protection strategy. All right, slide number 19. Actually 20, because the next one is just
There you go.
Oh, yeah, thank you. So this is a simple example of how you can create sensitivity labels. Here, as you can see, we have created some basic labels already of general, internal, highly confidential, confidential for finance team, confidential for HR team, and that's great. These are just a set of default labels, that you may have already created. Let us walk you through the experience of creating the new sensitivity labels in your company. So click on the next slide, Mike. Yeah, so here we literally click the create a label button. You come to this page, you give a label name, tooltip, description, and click next. Please click next, Mike. Here, the next slide, you can see that once you've created a label, let's assume we call it confidential. What do you want to do with it, right? So, hey, I want to make sure that if a file is confidential or highly confidential, that I must apply encryption. The fact that I'm sending a document over to Mike that was marked as internal document, it's okay. That's fine. Mike will treat it with care. That's okay. But if I'm sending Mike a highly confidential document, I want to make sure that I label it correctly. And behind the scenes, automatically, the file will be encrypted such that only Microsoft employees can open this file. So if Mike decides to, for whatever reason, put this file on the internet or Twitter or torrent, nobody else can actually open this file because it was encrypted, and it was encrypted for Microsoft employees only. So if you're a non-Microsoft employee and you double click on the file and you try to open it, it'll basically give you a credential prompt, and it'll say, hey, please provide your credentials. You provide your company credentials or your live credentials or your Gmail credentials. None of them are going to work because it was only meant for Microsoft employees. This is an example where we have an internal communication, internal conversation on a document. The document went out, and you are able to make sure that the inadvertent leak didn't happen. Similarly, a lot of times we see the same example being played out for where you really want to express control. So let's assume Mike does not work at Microsoft. I send an important document over email to Mike. It was marked as highly confidential for my partners. Mike will receive an email which was marked as highly confidential, encrypted, such that only Mike at, let's assume, gmail.com can open this email and the document, and nobody else can. So if Mike at Gmail decides to send this document over to Kurt or to Joe, they will not be able to open this email because it was only meant for Mike and Mike only, right? So encryption gives you this super cool capability that helps you protect yourself from leakage of data. And we have this capability built in for the last 10 years or 12 years at Microsoft. We have refined it now in the cloud, and it's much more useful and much more usable. It used to be called RMS, or Rights Management Services, in the old days. Now we have just built it into our overall information protection story, and you can absolutely avail it as part of the labeling technology. Next slide, Mike. Thank you. So the same example, you can encrypt, and then you can say, who do you want to encrypt to? You can say use all the members in my company. You can give specific users who are inside or outside the company. You can actually add domains. So you can say, hey, all Microsoft employees, and I don't know, let's assume all Intel employees, or you can put both of those together. So you can, if you're working on, let's assume a contract or or a merger acquisition, you can actually create a label for that particular M&A, and you can call it highly confidential M&A for project X. You can add those specific people in here, which could be end users or groups, and you can put all of them together and make sure that all the data is only being accessed by these people and nobody else. And we have plenty of customers who use all kinds of labels, whether they are company scope labels or they are specific groups, like for M&A or for campaigns across organizations and others. 25, please. Thank you. Here we give the example of adding users. You can pick them up and add them as much as you like. Next slide, please. Here we showed you that we just added a user, and the user can now actually open the file that we've sent them. Next slide, please. Here, once you're done the process of adding a user or a group, like Project Falcon in this case is a group, when you are done this process, you'll come back to the same page where you say, hey, my encryption policy is now done. Next slide. And now you say, hey, that's not good enough. I actually want to add some visual marking, because one of the most common ways we have seen people saving the inadvertent leak is by actually visually showing them that this file is sensitive. So imagine you have a file and you marked it as confidential. And the moment you click on confidential, or it happens automatically, there shows up a watermark on every page of the document which says confidential. And that, we have heard, is actually the most useful deterrent that you will see from your users. If you add a header or a footer or a watermark, it gives a sense to your users and trains them, telling them that this document is sensitive, that they should handle it with care. And that we figured out a lot more people actually use than even using encryption, because from a compliance perspective or from security perspective, user training is the most important factor, essentially, overall, in terms of protecting the data. So content marking is one of the most important parts of the technology that are actually being used today. Next slide, Mike. This just gives you the example of what you can do. You can create a watermark called confidential. You can give it font size, color, text layout. Next slide. So that's that. So you can now see that if a document was marked as confidential, you can encrypt it. You can add watermarks to it. But one of the recent things we have done is that we have worked with the Windows team, and in starting RS5, the October 2018 product that shipped, you can actually do more. If you are on a latest Windows 10 device and you have a highly confidential file, then you can apply something that we call as Windows information protection to this product. Essentially, what happens is that if I have a highly confidential file and I try to copy paste data and I put it on a USB, we will actually block it, and it's built into Windows, so you don't need to run any agents. You will just get this functionality working for you once you turn it on. We'll show more of this if we have time later, but it gives you the idea that the same label can actually apply protection to the document as the document is being created, for example, or when Windows natively can come in and actually do this work for you. One of the most commonly asked for conversation is in today's world is actually how can Windows work with our information protection story. Next slide, please. And once you have done all of this work, well, you go and just create this label. Now you click on create and the label is done. Next slide, Mike. And once this label is created, what you get to see is that this label can now be made available across all your Office apps. So literally, what I'm showing you on screen is that we have natively built in the labeling functionality where the user will actually see the label that you just created and can actually go click on these labels. And this functionality is available today across all apps, whether it's on Mac, iOS, and Android. They're all in public preview, heading GA now later this month. And this was fully available to you for all latest version of the apps on Mac, iOS, and Android. Office on Windows are coming soon. And we also have the Azure Information Protection client available today, which you can use against your Office 2010, 2013, 2016 on Windows as well. And it's one of the most widely used products that we have seen out there, where the user gets to click a button and classify the file as one of these four labels that you may have created for your company. Next slide, please. So let's kind of just very quickly walk you through the experiences that we have. So this is what's available on Mac today. You literally, if you're in public preview or inside a ring, you will see this functionality working for you. If you're not, well, wait a few more weeks and this should just come to you. This slide shows you that we have it available on Office on Mac. Literally click on the label and you're good to go. And once you click on this label, you will see that automatically the headers and the footers and the watermarks are applied. The user doesn't have to do anything. The user doesn't have to encrypt. All they have to know is that I can go and click a label and it will automatically, everything else happens automatically behind the scenes. Next slide, Mike. So this one basically shows that you can give the users the ability, if you wanted, to actually go change the label. For example, if a document was marked as highly confidential for whatever reason, they can actually say, no, it's not highly confidential anymore. It should be confidential or public information, because guess what? The merger is complete. So we provide you ways so you can change the classification of the file, and the users can do it too. Next slide, Mike. So here is an example of what it will look like on Excel. And this is also, again, as I said, on Mac available publicly. Next slide, Mike. The moment you click on that, then you will see that the headers have been applied. You see the little lock at the bottom which says highly confidential. This is something that you will be, even if you don't have headers, footers, or others, the users will actually find that lock which tells them that this file is highly confidential. So it's very built into the overall Office experiences that we have provided for end users, which is very unlike what you will see from almost anybody in the industry, where you have to go provide the add-ins, and the experience is very clunky. You just want a built-in experiences across. By the way, the other thing I want to mention is that we are the only organization, of course, that can build these experiences natively on all Office apps, especially on Mac, iOS, and Android. No other product can actually even have an experience on these platforms, because there is no, as we call it, plug-in model on these platforms, and we are the only ones who can help provide this and give you consistent experience across the board. Next slide, please, Mike. Thank you. This is the same experience on Outlook. So if you are on Outlook on Mac, guess what? Just click on your the label, and then you're good to go. Next slide, Mike. And the beauty of it is that if you are reading the document email on the other side, you will see a lot of these label experiences just built in, and you can see on the right hand side it says public label, and learn more to understand what this label means. As I said, we are the only ones who can build this, right? Because we can build it natively into Office apps. Let's keep going, Mike. We have a bunch of slides to show here. Next experience on iOS, just kind of showing you that if your users use a variety of devices and use Office apps on those devices, whether it's Windows, Mac, iOS, Android, or web, we have you covered. We have this same functionality to keep you secure and compliance across the board. So this is Word on iOS. Next slide, Mike. Same thing on PowerPoint, available on the iPad. Next slide, Mike. And now, in fact, we have the public preview running of the same functionality available on Outlook. And this is one of the most demanded functionality we had, which is to provide the same experience on Outlook on iOS and Outlook on Android. And it's available in public preview today. If you are a customer who wants this functionality, implement this functionality, just let us know after the call, and we'll be happy to add you to the right review program so you can get this functionality working for you. Next slide, Mike. Just continuing showing you the power of this on Android. The same story available on Android phones and Android tablets. Next slide. Justification available here as well. Similar experience, different screen, but kind of gives you where we are. Next slide, Mike. And on Office apps and Windows, as I was mentioning, we have both available. If you are on the latest version of Office apps, then guess what you have? You will see it built into Office apps on Word, PowerPoint, Excel, and Outlook. But if you are not on the latest version, the Office Pro Plus version, which is click to run, then you will be able to deploy our add-in that will work against Office 2016, 2013, and 2010, which gives you very similar functionality that you can actually see on the screen. It's built the same way as the native functionality. Next slide, Mike. Yep, here you can see the same thing available on Excel as well. All right, next slide. All right, so now that we have shown you the power of what you can do with labeling, what your users can achieve, gives you the end-to-end protection around for labels across all devices. Doesn't matter what your user is using, and that's one of the most important things. The comprehensive, unified labels available across the board, and Microsoft can only Microsoft can do this because we have built it natively across the board. Now comes the various policy actions that you can take, right? One of the first policy actions you can take is this whole idea of Office 365 message encryption. So imagine I have an email that is super sensitive. On the screen, you can see there's this email that I want to send it to mia@gmail.com. I want to apply label and protection to this email. So I literally click on either the labels and I can say this is confidential email and I want to send it to Mia, or I can say no, I want to actually just literally send the email with protection only. You can do either ways, but we have this product now called Office 365 Message Encryption that will make sure that the email is encrypted and the end user can always open this email, irrespective of who they are, what their identity is. Doesn't matter whether they're Office 365 identity or an on-premises identity or a Yahoo identity or a Gmail identity, irrespective of what device they're using, whether you're using an Android tablet, using the Chrome browser with a Gmail account, they will always be able to open the email that we have sent them. And you as an organization stay secure and compliant. So we see the usage of this product called Office 365 Message Encryption both ways. We see it from organizations that must stay compliant. For example, if you're in the healthcare business, or insurance business, you want to make sure that you send encrypted emails or statements or emails to your end users, and you want to make sure that these emails and the attachments are all encrypted by the time they reach the end users. You can do that. If you are a security-led organization that wants to make sure that the confidential data is always reaching the right hands and only those hands, you can use that product as well. It's a phenomenal product. The good news is it's today available as part of your Office 365 E3 licenses only. So you don't need to buy special licenses for this product. It's a matter of turning it on and meet your compliance and security requirements. As simple as clicking a button. So let's show you an example of how this will work. So in this case, I sent an email to mia@gmail.com, literally click permissions, do not forward, or choose my label, and you're good to go. Next slide, Mike. Here you can see that email was received by somebody on Gmail that has no connection whatsoever with Microsoft Technologies. In this case, you can see that email was received. Because your email was received on Gmail, you can actually produce a wrapper. You can completely customize this wrapper. You can put your own company's logos. You can change the text. You can do whatever you like. And what the user has to do is to click on that read message. Next slide. And when you click on next, we actually give you a full 100% OVA experience to the end user. And that experience is available for this user for free, right? Remember, this user was using Android tablet on a Chrome browser with Gmail account, and they receive an email with attachment that they can actually now open. They can read through the attachment. They can reply to the email at no cost to your company. They require no licensing from you. It's made completely freely available to the actual Gmail user till your company has Office 365 E3 licensing. Next slide. And not only this, you can over a period of time see the trend. I mean, there are various examples and demos I can show you on what it will look like on Outlook apps and or various browsers. But I showed you the extreme use case. Um, Trust us, we just want to make sure that the emails are always encrypted and available to everybody. This is an example of what the dashboard would look like. You can actually see how many emails were sent out of the company, encrypted with what kind of policies were they sent out of. So you can see all of that. It's fully available to you in preview. Very soon going to GA. All right. So now that we've done the first policy action around message encryption, confidential emails being encrypted before they send out, let us show you a few more examples of similar policies that you can apply. Next slide, Mike.
Yeah, sure. And just a reminder to everybody who's on, since I'm sharing the slides from my desktop, you can keep posting your questions. We will be queuing those up in a bit for the Q&A. I'm not missing them. I'm just not able to see and reply them until we move into that portion.
Yeah, and I'm going to try to finish up very quickly here as well to kind of give us time to answer the question. Okay, so here's an experience that we're showing on Windows. Remember, I was talking about that Windows now plays in the information protection space. Here is an example of built-in Windows functionality when you have a highly confidential document. You try to copy-paste data and you put it on, let's assume, Twitter. The moment you do that, you can actually enforce policies. You can say, hey, this is a highly confidential document. Are you sure you want to do this? So we provide a little message box here. You can completely block this if you like, no question. You can do whatever. You have multiple different actions around auditing, around tooltips that you can provide to your users, or blocking data from being copied out to a Twitter or a Facebook. So we help protect users and the company from inadvertent leaks. Next slide. Thank you. Here you can see that I tried to copy paste this highly confidential data over onto my OneDrive personal or Dropbox or both. And the moment you do that, we could produce the same message. We can say, hey, this organization doesn't allow you to actually place highly confidential data on non-corporate, sync drives. So please don't do that. So that's an example of that. Next slide, Mike. Similarly, if I try to copy paste this file over to Gmail, which is not a corporate-led email solution, we can actually block that as well. We can basically tell you that you're taking work content, confidential content over to an email that is not sanctioned by your company. Next slide, Mike. And similarly, if you are trying to copy paste your file over to a network drive or to a USB, in this case, a Kingston USB drive, we can block that as well. We can basically say, hey, you don't want to copy it. Or if you feel like productivity is important, you can actually copy it with encryption. And that's a deeper conversation, but you kind of get the idea. We have the ability now built into Windows to provide you some basic level of DLP capabilities running with the labels. All right, so that's about Windows. We've shown you how emails work and how we can make Windows allow you for protection, better protection. Let's keep going, right? Let's help you now. Let's walk you through how we can help you run this label-based protection capability across cloud apps and on-premises. So let's first go through the cloud apps, right? So as I was mentioning, Microsoft Cloud App Security is the biggest CASB product available in the industry today with the largest usage. And what you can do with CASB is you can apply the same set of protections that you saw on other places using the same labels. For example, if you have sensitive data that's going into Salesforce, Box, Dropbox, or other, then you have the ability to basically, as soon as the file gets dropped, let's assume on your Box drive or Dropbox drive or Salesforce, what MCAS will do is that it will grab this file, it will discover essentially, it will look for the sensitivity, and if the file is sensitive, then it will automatically classify the file as sensitive, apply this label as of confidential, and then encrypt the file as well if you wanted it to be. And therefore, you get this capability across all your cloud apps, the ability to classify, label, and protect. All right. Next slide, please. Thank you. And what you could do with cloud apps using the CASB, you can do the same thing via the AIP scanner. And I was showing this example to you where where you can have a file share full of confidential files. Then you can run our AIP scanner in either in discovery mode or in enforcement mode, which will classify, label, and protect the file exactly how you would do it on any other repository. So now we've covered your on-premises file shares. We have covered your SharePoint sites. We have covered Office 365. We have covered Windows endpoints. We have covered Office apps fully. We have covered other cloud apps, non-Microsoft cloud apps across the board. So we basically are providing you a full discover, classify, and labeling protection capability across the board. Doesn't matter where you are. Let's go to the next slide, Mike. So here's an example on how you can run your scanner across various nodes. Let's assume you have 1,000 file servers. You can run the scanner against all 1,000 file servers, and you can manage that from a single place. All right, next slide, please. Now, all of this is possible because we have this idea of MIP, or Microsoft Information Protection SDK, that can actually run and supports both first-party apps, Microsoft apps, and third-party apps, and our ISV partners. Next slide. We have this SDK available today on Mac, iOS, Android, Windows, and Linux. So if you are a customer with an application that you feel must have classification, labeling, and protection built in, one of the most common use cases we hear is, hey, I'm downloading a file from a particular LOB app, line of business application, and when the file comes out, it must be made confidential. Then guess what? We have an SDK to help you with that. We have around 30 odd partners, right, from ForcePoint to Digital Guardian to Symantec to Secude, who actually participate and use this product with us today. Next slide, right? Thank you. Here is an example of what Adobe has already built. It's actually in GA now. They just went GA a few days ago, where you can now have labeled and protected PDFs in your organization, fully covered with our information protection story with the latest version of Adobe Reader, Acrobat Reader on Windows. So our story is just not about the Office apps or the Microsoft products. It's a pretty global story. And we are the only product in the industry that can actually, that Adobe actually works with today for labeling and protection of data. Next slide, ma'am. Now, very quickly, let's cover our reporting story as well. Next slide, Mike. So here you can see that we have a pretty comprehensive reporting story available for you. Doesn't matter how your data is being protected or labeled. We can give you a view of what's going on in an organization. Like as you deploy the product, as you label and protect more documents, we will show you the trend. We will show you how many documents are being labeled, how many users are being protected. We will also show you which labels are being used, and we'll also show you which application is applying these labels essentially in your organization. Next slide, Mike. Just a bigger version of the same conversation, essentially, kind of giving you a full view so you can actually see what's available today. This is fully available in market today in public preview form, hitting GA very, very soon. And you can do this for like if you are in the security or compliance org and you want to provide the adoption, reporting to your management, then this is a very quick view. You can say 30-day view, 60-day view, 90-day view of all of the label documents available in your organization. Next slide, Mike. Thank you. Here is a simple example of our data discovery view. Remember, I was telling you that we have the AIP scanner and the AIP client actually that can help you discover data. You don't have to actually protect it or label it. You can just discover it. So here is an example of what will happen. Let's assume in this case, what we're showing is that we ran the scanner on 2 locations or 3 locations. We found out that there are 1.7 million files in there that we were able to touch upon or discover. We found out that out of those, 1.3 million were just normal files. They don't have any confidential data. Then we have 255,000 files with confidential GDPR data, and we have 85,000 files with highly confidential data. And how do we figure this out? You have your own rules that are running behind the scenes, remember? And so that's how we basically give you a full view of what's going on in your organization. You can figure out which information types were hit most. For example, SSN or credit card numbers or debit card numbers or Denmark PII data or passport numbers. like various information types were hit, and which produce these kinds of labels, therefore. So a pretty comprehensive view of discovery of data, which is probably the most important element that you want to achieve anyway. Next slide, Mike. Not only this, we have pretty deep analysis that you can do for all of this data. You can write your own queries if you didn't like our dashboard. And a lot of our customers do this. They, instead of using our dashboard as it stands, you can create your own dashboard very quickly by using our log analytics algorithms, and very quickly modify what kind of reports you want to generate and generate those reports on your out. And you don't have to create a completely new infrastructure. You can just do it on our log analytics available on Azure. If you have your own, um, scene implementation, for example, with Splunk or others, then no problem. You can just use our log analytics to grab all the data out, and you can produce it in the right report in your scene. And we see a lot of customers doing that as well. So we have all kinds of possibilities available for you. You can use our reporting, you can use our analytics, or you can choose to grab the baseline logs and data and use it in your own report. All right, next step. Again, a similar view of data discovery at repository level. Like you can go into each repository and you can see the actual file paths. You can see the actual file names. You can see whether we applied the label, did we apply encryption, why did we apply the label? So you can see the information type matches here. So pretty detailed information available to you if you want to go deep into from a security or SecOps point of view. Next slide, Mike. Okay, so last summary and the last set of steps. Let's keep going, Mike. Thank you. So the first one is very simple. The most important thing we told you was remember the 4 pillars of discover, classify, protect, and monitor across all of your workloads on devices, apps, cloud services, and on-premises. This is the MIP vision and our promise. We are good at some, we are not good at others, but this is what we are not the best at others, but we're driving towards the overall vision of giving you full discovery, classification, and monitoring, protection monitoring across the board. Next slide, Mike. MIP is an umbrella, Microsoft Information Protection, multiple different products that help us achieve this for Microsoft customers, right from Windows with Windows Information Protection, Office 365 for Office 365 DLP and message encryption, the one we saw, and then Azure Information Protection and MCAS completing the story for your hybrid organization across the board. Next slide, Mike. If you want to look at a deeper view, this is a slide that I didn't really show because it's just too many words, too many terms, but a 360-degree view of our information protection capabilities across the board. This kind of gives you that view today. So you can imagine we'll continue to go further with things we didn't walk you through today, like Power BI, Dynamics, SAP, and others. We're going to continue to add classification related capabilities across these places as well. Next slide, Mike. All right. So if you are already using some of our products, then you will see that there are a bunch of announcements we have recently made around unifying our labels and protection story on SCC, native labeling available on all Office platforms. Our MIP SDK is very popular right now. A lot of ISVs are integrating with us. Adobe plus PDF is huge. Windows plus information protection is something that the customers really asking for and are using, and our reporting story around MIP is pretty fantastic as well. All right, so that's that. Next slide, Mike. You can later on look through our roadmap for which we have shipped recently. Keep clicking, Mike, please. One more time.
Sorry, I hit it. Yeah.
Thank you.
The wrong button there. There we
All
go.
Right. And then what we are shipping over a period of time is taking a lot of these products into GA. And we also want to add a lot more of the automated classification capabilities in the next 6 months or so. So that's it. So that's basically the roadmap. Next slide kind of talks about getting started, where you should definitely, if you are interested in information protection or are using information protection technologies already, great. But if you're new to this, you must start with understanding what sensitive data for your company means, and then start figuring out how do you want to protect that data, and start then classifying and labeling your content. It's a pretty simple journey. It's a long journey, but it's a very simple journey. But we have seen great fruits coming out, customers becoming more compliant, becoming more secure, data leaks going lesser and lesser. And you definitely want to use this as a way to stay secure and compliant as well. All right, so that's pretty much the end of the conversation. Mike, I know I took a long time.
No, that's good. I'm going to exit out of here and come into, I'm going to go into a mixed screen where people can see me, and I'm going to queue up and see if we've got a question here from Dean Groves. And he is asking, how do labels get applied when files are classified by the scanner?
Say that, Mike, again, how do labels get applied when files are classified by the scanner?
Yes.
Okay. So essentially, the scanner doesn't just scan. So we read so the way it works is you will come and create your automation policies, right? So you automated classification policies. So you will say, hey, if I find the following 5 regular expressions or information types, or whatever your policy is, then mark a file as confidential. So that's a step that you will take on our admin console. And then when you run the scanner literally a crawler like a Bing or a Google would do. It goes through each file. So you pick up a file, and the first file it looks at, we have a classification engine that runs locally on the file server, essentially. And then we look through the file, we find out if any of the rules are met. If a rule is met, then we go ahead and not only report this, so we do our logging and tracking, all the other side. But one of the things we also do is we say, oh, this is the label that must be applied. So then we go and write this label into the metadata of the file. And now the next thing we do is we look at the protection policies of this label. For example, you may have said that if a file is highly confidential, that you must apply encryption, right? So then we will go apply encryption on the file. For example, at Microsoft, we have a label called confidential for Microsoft FTE. So the scanner will first apply the label of confidential Microsoft FTE, and then we'll apply the encryption policy locally as well. So the scanner has built in our SDK essentially from that angle. And then we'll apply the encryption policy, and the file is now continues to stay on the file server exactly how it was. And the scanner just moves on to the next file. If a user comes in later, double clicks on the file, then finds out that the file has been labeled and the file has been encrypted as well. So it's a pretty standard process where we read the file, we make sense of the file, and if a policy needs to be label needs to be applied, or policy needs to be applied, then we apply those as well locally on the file server itself.
Excellent. One of the questions that I've had some customers ask me too is around, you were on one of the slides talking about the on-premise as well as the cloud, and they're asking about some of the limitations that we see on-premise, and is there any limitations in regard not just around file shares and repositories, but also around SharePoint itself? Is there a version requirement for the on-prem for that to work? And that's been asked.
Yeah, no, actually not. There is actually no. We start working from SharePoint 2010 up to 2013 and up to 2016 and on. So there is actually no requirement versioning. I mean, the versioning requirement starts from SharePoint 2010 and file servers. This happens to be a file server, a Windows file server. I think from server 2012, I believe, but I can find it out. So no major versioning requirement as such. And the scanner, you can just literally deploy it on any of these boxes. We have tested it across many of these. No major requirement or limitation that I know of actually.
Excellent. So we had a follow-up on the previous question about the scanner. Yeah. And Dean is asking, so the scanner applies the label to the metadata, but not to the header footer within the file. Is this correct?
Oh, good question. So not all of the policies get applied today, and we're actually working on it. For example, today we don't apply watermark on the file itself, like when the file is saved. But guess what? When you double click on the file and you open the file in a let's assume on a device that has the AIP client deployed already, or when it comes natively, then we will look at the policy and we'll say, oh, this document is marked as confidential, but the watermark is not applied. So let me go apply the watermark. So we can post scan when the file gets opened, we can apply that. Now, if a file did not get open on one of those devices that or apps that have the AIP client or has built in natively, let's assume I take this file and directly send it to somebody outside the company, then yes, you will lose the idea of watermark today, like the way it stands right now. But we are actively investing in applying the watermark and headers footers on the file, even when you don't, when the user has not opened it. So there may be a gap today, but it's not going to be there for that long.
Excellent. So another question that I'd had actually came to a client I wanted to bring up from yesterday, and theirs was around data and the possibility of data leakage. And they had been talking to some analysts around the difference when they're going to share data externally and worrying about the possibility of data leakage, of information getting out there, and looking at the difference between using SharePoint Online and OneDrive Online. And they were advised by this analyst that in fact they should not use OneDrive because there was a greater propensity to leak data versus SharePoint. And when we talk about the governance and the things that you're talking about, those apply, could you speak to how that equally applies across both and provides a great mechanism so people can have full advantage of the tools while having the security they need?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question, by the way. Okay, point. So the first thing, I think it's not fully true that OneDrive has more leakage than SharePoint. I don't think that's accurate. I mean, even at Microsoft, for example, that we have policies where we don't allow data to be from OneDrive, for example, to be shared outside the company, and you can just apply those policies right away. But some of the things that we are adding, some of the features that we are adding now, is that you can now have conditional access applied to your OneDrive policies. For example, if you share the data with somebody outside the company, and you can have conditional access which says, do not let the people outside the company download this file, right? They can only view this file online in a read-only version. So a lot of times that is just good enough. Like those are hammers that you can use for all data that's outside the, try to be opened outside the company. A lot of policies can actually be used to prevent data leakage because nobody can download those documents. So there is no chance of actual leakage from that point of view. We are going to, over a period of time, of course, add capabilities where you can, one of the capabilities we announced actually recently is that you can take some of these repositories and you can label them as highly confidential or confidential, and then apply some basic conditional access policies on them. So it's just not a, so you can basically use the same label concept applied with conditional access. And we're working very closely with the SharePoint and OneDrive team. Trust me, it's the same team, to actually not only apply conditional access when the data is being opened by somebody else outside the company, but you can also apply labels and encryption on top of that. So that's some of the work that we are actively investigating with them. But because we want to make sure that when, the functionality I showed you with OME or Office 365 message encryption, where you have a highly sensitive document, you attach it to a file, email, and you send out this email, then the email becomes labeled and encrypted. You should be able to do the same thing with your data with your file that is coming out of SharePoint Online. We don't have that yet, but that's the next frontier for us once we nail the basic set of capabilities in OneDrive and SharePoint.
Excellent. So we have no further questions. I don't see any coming in. I guess what I would ask is, first of all, you shared with me your deck because, again, for those attending, I want to apologize. We had some technical issues at the beginning where we had power outage, and then evidently there was some issues with the link, which we rehydrated and shared out and seemed to work. But for those who are here, we apologize for that, but we do have resources and some next steps. And So you had shared some resources here. Is there anywhere in particular, any of these that you would encourage people to go to, or just all of them as we share those out?
Yeah, I would suggest start with the videos, uh, or the Ignite sessions. Like the Ignite sessions are the best because they kind of always tell the full story, and then from there on, pick up the pieces that you want to go after, and there are links available for that. But if you picked up the Ignite session, for example, protecting your complete data lifecycle with MIP, I think that's the one session that kind of gives you the entire overview, and you can continue from there.
Excellent. We did have another question just pop up, and this comes from James, and James wants to know, how often does DLP scan documents, and is there a way to set the scan frequency?
Okay. So the two things, right? One is you want to make sure that all documents get scanned at least once in the beginning, right? So whether you're using the Office 365 DLP or you're using the AIP scanner, it doesn't matter, or the Microsoft CASB, like it doesn't matter what you use. The important point is all document must get scanned once, and after that, when a document changes, we will do it actually at the time we get a signal that a document has changed. So whether it's Office 365 DLP or the CASB or AIP scanner, they will all look for those interrupts. So if I go to, let's assume, my Salesforce repository or my box or Office 365, and I update a document, then the right DLP essentially will pick up the file right away and say, oh, I know what to do. I need to scan this file again to look for confidential content and see if a different set of protection actions need to be applied. So you don't really need a frequency from that point of view. You just need one-time full scan, and then from there on, you want to make sure that it's an interrupt-driven process. A new file gets dropped or an existing file gets edited, and you want to make sure that the DLP process ran.
Excellent. So unless I see any last questions, which I do not, I'm going to go ahead and we'll kind of wrap up. First of all, I want to thank you for attending and for an excellent presentation today. This session, just so everybody knows, it has been recorded. It will be on our blog live in, let me go ahead, I'll grab the URL and put that in the Q&A portion here. Sooner, there we go. So grab that URL, copy, and we'll place that here. So that will be live in just a bit. I'll have to wait. I got a thank you from James saying this was great. So, glad that this was helpful for you. And what we're going to do is we'll put that up there. And then am I able to also put the slide deck up as well with this?
Yes, Mike. You can take the slide deck and publish.
Awesome. So we'll go ahead and attach that. We'll make that live. Expect that within the next hour. I just got a quickie lunch. And just as a quick reminder, I'm going to go ahead and I want to share. I'm going to say stop sharing and share this time. I want to share out, I believe it's this window. No, that's not it. Share my, let's see. I'm going to share my particular desktop here. And hopefully everybody can see that. And so tomorrow, just as a reminder, we have the next in our series of the Modern Workplace Transformation series. It will be session number 3. So we'll be covering enterprise data visualization with Power BI. I'm going to go through just to double check with the links to make sure everything's working this afternoon, but encourage you to share that with your colleagues. And we hope to see you tomorrow. And again, thanks for everybody who did tune in today, for everything, for your questions. I see we had some additionals. I can see notes on slides. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and remove those. Thanks, was super helpful. Yes, we're going to update with the links, etc. So all that'll be there. And I just want to thank you, everybody, for attending. Have a great day and take care and see you tomorrow. Bye-bye now.